This is the third video in this series, and I'll be showing some techniques on how I created the drawings for this project. If you'd like to see how I modeled this project, you can check that out in previous videos, and a link to those can be found in the description below. The modeling for this project is complete, and if you saw the previous videos, you might notice a couple of small changes. First, I've added some bent plate extension bars to the existing ladder. And second, I've added this bent plate gusset and removed an existing brace. Now I'm ready to start the drawing process. To begin, I'll perform a numbering. I'll make sure my numbering is set up properly by selecting Drawings and Reports, then the number setting drop down and select Numbering Settings. I want to select Restart Numbering and Load, and this enables the renumber all and reuse old numbers, which is important. Click Apply and OK. Then we go to Perform Numbering, and we select Number Modified Objects. And click Yes. Now the new parts have been numbered and it's time to create some drawings. I'll start with the GA drawing. Click on the Create Drawings drop down and GA drawing. And I'll use the plan at 52 foot 6 3/4 and then select Drawing Properties. And I have some starter settings here, which will load, and apply and OK, and then click Create. And that will create the drawing. And to see it, we click on the drawing list, and here is the newly created drawing. Now that that's created, I'll double click to load it. Now, a word about the drawing editor. I could create a bunch of filters and object level settings to automatically format everything for me, but I find it's easier on these smaller projects to handle the majority of that manually. I'm used to doing it this way because most of the structures I work on don't necessarily fall in the category of traditional or normal, and actually it's not all that difficult to work manually. I think that in some ways it's a little better because it allows me a little more control and flexibility when creating and editing the drawings. Plus, I just really enjoy working with the drawings. With Tekla, you can be as automatic or manual as you want to be, which is, in my opinion, a huge advantage. So there really isn't any right way or wrong way to handle the drawings as long as the end product turns out the way that works for you. So with that said, I want this plan to end up as a framing plan, and I'll start by cleaning it up a bit. First, I'll delete off all of the marks and dimensions that were automatically created just by windowing in and deleting. Then I'll open the view properties by double clicking on the view frame, and we'll turn the grid off by selecting not visible, modify. And I want to scale this up a bit, so we'll set that for 18, and that'll work. I think that'll work because I'll have some sections and details around here, and I'm also going to have another plan for the grading and railing down here, so I think that'll work. We'll keep it at that for now. The next I want to do is I want to change the depth of view. Since this is a framing plan, I don't need for the depth up to be so high because it shows too much of the railing. So we'll change that to 6 inches. And that gets us a little closer to the framing itself. And while this is also loaded, I want to filter out the new grading, and I'll do that by selecting the filter, and we'll add a row. The category is going to be part. The property will be the phase, since we've broken the model out into phases. We don't want to show these, so I'm going to say does not equal, and the phase that the grading is on is 202. And we'll click apply, and I want to save that and then modify. And that will get rid of the grading. Now I'm going to go through and do some manual editing, which is basically I want to hide some parts off of here, starting with the existing grading, which was made in one piece. So I select that, I right mouse click, and I click on hide show and then hide from drawing. And that will hide that and show the things that are underneath it. So now I want to also go through, and I'm going to select this here, which is actually the toe plate from the existing rail. We don't need to show this on the framing plan. That goes all the way around to here. And then I also want to take out the new toe plate and the bolts that they are attached with. And that's also up here, that. And I'm just holding down the control key while I'm selecting these parts. And that bolt. And then I right mouse click and select hide from drawing view. We also have some bracing down here. We don't need to show that. So we'll hide that. And then on the ladder, we'll clean this up a bit by hiding these slats. We don't necessarily need to see those on the framing plan. And that should just about do it for that. I'll briefly show the steps I use to create object level filters just to illustrate how that works. This is version 2016, but I still use the old method for creating object level settings since I really haven't had time to play with the new method. And for the purposes of this demonstration, I've changed the color of all the objects to make it easier to see what's going on. We'll start by double-clicking on the view to open up its properties. And I already have a few settings stored, so I'll click on Edit Settings and load those first. And then click Modify and OK. And for now, I'll delete these marks. And I'll add some back later in a more strategic manner. You can see how the colors have changed for the existing members. If I tap the B key, it toggles from color mode to black and white to grayscale and then back to color. In the black and white mode, you can see the line thicknesses and how they'll look when it's plotted, and the grayscale mode shows any shading that's been applied and how it will look. I'll open the properties again and start to create a new object level filter to handle the appearance of the new framing. First thing I want to create is the filter itself. So I click on Filter, then I click on New Filter, or you can load an existing filter and modify it, or just load an existing filter. I want to include all of the new framing parts, so I'll click Add Row, and under the category we'll select Part. The property will use Phase, the condition will be Equals, and the value will be 200. Now do not click on the Modify, Apply, or OK button. Instead, type in the name for your filter. I'll use New Framing and click Save As. I only want to define the filter. If I click on Modify, Apply, and OK, it will apply that filter to my selected view, and I don't want that. I only want to define the filter at this point. Since we have it saved, I'll click Cancel. Next, I want to define how the new framing will be shown in this view. So under Objects, I'll click Part. I already have a setting for this that I like to use, so I'll load that, but you can select and change any of the aspects that you need to at this part. And again, don't click on Modify, Apply, or OK. Instead, type a name in for the setting and click Save As. I'm going to save this with the name of New Frame Part Mark, so I can easily tweak the settings later if I need to. And again, don't click Modify, Apply, or OK. Just Save As. Now that that's saved, I'll click Cancel. Now it's time to apply the properties we've just defined by clicking on the Edit Settings, and I'll make sure that the overall settings that I want are loaded and appear in the Save As box as well. And then I'll click Add Row and select our new filter from the list, which is New Framing. And the drawing object type will be Part. And then we want to select the settings will be the new frame part mark settings that we just set. And then click Apply and then Save As to save them to the overall settings, and then Modify. And now the part properties are applied to the new framing members using object level settings. It's pretty simple to add part marks and notes to the drawings, which are largely based on user preferences and standards. This video isn't meant to be a comprehensive tutorial on how to add marks and notes, but I'll show a couple of methods that I use to note up the drawings. You might see more later in this video and possibly in future videos as well. So calling out the existing members is easy because they were defined in the object level settings earlier. I'll select the members that I want to identify, and I do this by holding down on the Shift or the Control key while I'll select the individual members. Then I right mouse click and select Add Part Mark, and then move these around as necessary, but I'll do that later. I think this one shows up differently because it was the primary part of the existing platform assembly. I'll just select it and hold down the Shift key and then double click on another part mark to bring up the properties, and then click on Modify to make the marks match. To call out the new framing, I'll select the members, again by holding down the Shift or Control key. And I don't want to select this member because it's part of the frame. I'll right mouse click and select Add Part Mark. I can then select these part marks by holding down the Shift key and then double click on the last part mark. And that brings up the part mark properties. I have a preset mark that I want to use called New Mark, so I'll load that and click Modify. And now I'll move my part marks to the locations that I want them. And this one I want to modify by adding space and then a piece of text that reads frame. Okay, to add the assembly position or piece mark, I'll select the associative note drop down and hold the Shift key while selecting Without Leader Line. This brings up the associative note properties, and I have a preset that I want to use called Piece Mark Only. So I'll load that, click Apply and OK, and now I can select the part that I want the note to apply to and then pick a location for it. Showing the piece mark using this method allows me more flexibility and control to position it, since it's not tied directly to the member callout. To add a piece mark to a member that's not horizontal, such as these, I'll click on the associative note drop down and select a long line. I then select the part, which also selects the origin point. Then I pick another point to set the direction I want the note to read. And lastly, I select the location for the note. The note can be moved parallel along the direction that was set and is locked at a fixed distance. However, you can move the note by selecting it and then hold down the Shift key and left click on it to drag it to the desired location. I'll show it again in real time. The last thing I want to show in this video is the section view command. That is, in my opinion, one of the most powerful tools in the drawing editor. The section view command allows you to create a new view from another view directly on the drawings. So in this example, I want to show a view along the right edge of this plan looking towards the platform. To do this, I select Views, then Section View, and it asks for the first point on a cut plane. And this can be any point along where you want the cutting plane to be. Next, it asks for the second point, and again, it can be at any point along the cutting plane. Also, don't pay too much attention to the direction that the arrows are pointing. This doesn't represent the direction it'll be looking at this particular moment. So I'll give the second point. Now it asks for the first position of the cut box. And it's at this point that the looking directions will be set. So I want to make sure that the arrows are pointing in the direction I want. If I want the section to look to the left, I would give a point on this side. If I want the section looking right, I would give a point on this side. I want the section looking to the left, so I'll give a point over here. Also, this is the first corner of a box that will define the view contents. So I'm going to window in an area that I want to see in the section view. I'll give a point here, and then I'll give another point down here, and that defines the section view, the extents of the section view. So anything that falls inside this box will be shown on the section view that I'm creating. Lastly, it asks for an insertion point, which can be anywhere you want it. I'll give a point right here. And I can also adjust the height of the section here by just selecting these handles and pulling it down, adjusting this. And that looks good right there. This is also a little too big, so I will select it and change the scale to 18 to match the plan. And we'll clean it up a little bit by deleting off any marks and dimensions that were put on automatically. And as with the plan, I'll add some of those back with more precision later. Now I want to change the look of the section markers. These are the default section markers, so I want to change those. So I'll double click on them to bring up the section symbol properties. And I have several presets for sections and details depending on the application. So you'll also notice that I have different settings for both left and right. For this section, I'll select main section cut left and load, and then modify. And You can change the distance away from the main cutting plane with this value here, which I'll change to 1/2 inch and modify, and that looks pretty good. So then I'll move it down a bit. Now this section view can be modified just like this plan view was by either using object level settings or manually changing, or a combination of both. So I'm going to skip ahead a bit and show the completed general arrangement drawing. I didn't cover every aspect of how I created it, but I'll try to do more demonstrations on how I use the Tekla drawing editor in future videos. As always, I appreciate you watching this video, and if you found it helpful or enjoyable, please slap a like on it down below. Also, if you haven't already and you'd like to know when future videos become available, please consider subscribing. There are links to the other videos in this series below in the description, so feel free to check those out if you haven't already. Thank you again, and stay tuned for the next video.